Welcome to the Painting of the Week podcast, where we look at some of the most significant paintings throughout history. Introducing your hosts, Phil Grabsky and Laura Bentham.
Welcome to this week's Painting of the Week. Actually, it's a slightly odd painting, but we'll come on to that very, very briefly. This is our Christmas special, and Laura has very kindly brought a little bit of Christmas sound effects there.
And Christmas crochet.
A bit of Christmas crochet. You'll just have to try and imagine it. It's beautiful, Laura, what can I say? And it's very Christmassy. Thank you very much. Now, it's 3:00 on Christmas Day. There's really nothing to do except one thing, and I'm not talking the King's Speech, no disrespect, but it is Monopoly time. And today's artwork is, yes, indeed, the Monopoly board. Probably if there was an artwork that's probably in just about every household in the country, it's the Monopoly board. Artwork, you might be saying. Yes, artwork. I think that the Monopoly board is a beautiful piece of art. And if one starts from the position of somebody invents a game and they start with a blank piece of paper and they have to think to themselves, well, should it be a circle? Should it be a triangle? Should it be a square? What's going to be on that square? What's going to be the font? What's going to be the colours? Etc., etc. Never mind the rules and all the rest of it. And I actually think that the Monopoly board is very, very beautiful. Anyway, we'll talk about that too. But the exciting news is, for our Christmas gift to you, lovely audience, we have brought, well, I was going to say out of retirement, but not exactly. 3 times, not once, not twice, but 3 times British Monopoly champion. Yes, there is such a thing. Mike, and I should add his surname is Mike Grabsky. Yes, my brother, Mike Grabsky, 3 times British Monopoly champion. Mike?
Good afternoon.
Fantastic. And with Mike, we have his son Alex, who has suffered for 20 years I'm not talking not just Christmas, but the constant playing of Monopoly. Alex, welcome.
Hello.
And, of course, it's Laura and myself. Now, let's just start with a little bit of history. There'll be many of you, some of you, who may think that the Monopoly board was invented by a guy called Charles Darrow back in 1935. You might know the story. He played a game at a dinner party in 1932, thought this is great, sells the rights to Parker Brothers, and goes down in history as the inventor of Monopoly. In fact, it wasn't his invention. Mike, do you want to pick up on that, or shall I?
Well, it was actually a woman called Lizzie McGee, back in 1903, I believe,
Yep.
who brought out the first version of Monopoly, which she called the Landlord's Game. And she brought it out primarily as an anti-monopoly game. She was I think they were just bringing in the income taxes or some sort of new taxes back in the early 20th century. And this was a protest. So it was all about how, the greedy landlords and this sort of stuff. That was her idea. She had no idea that later on people would, greedily pick up the properties and try and bankrupt each other. It wasn't the intention. But that was the original game, which subsequently got played over 30 years in various versions, people changing the rules, American universities and stuff, and colleges, till Charles Darrow saw it and changed it to his particular version.
And along the way, there's a guy called Shrek who's involved in the design of it. One of the things that we know about this is that her original idea is patented, and it was a square. There is a picture of it, which I've got here. Let me just find it. So this is the actual patent that I've got in front of me from January the 5th, 1904. And it's essentially a square, although it has kind of circles on the corners. And she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it is 10 spaces. So that doesn't change. You've got the railroad in the middle. And there's other notes. So she's got a bank. She talks about the cash, the pieces. And this process from going from cheap properties to wealthy properties, but she doesn't name them, interestingly enough. Now, the board that we have in front of us today, which is the picture that you're looking at, and of course I should remind you, for those of you who don't know, if you go to seventh-art.com and press on podcast, you'll see the artwork, which is this particular Monopoly board, which is of London street names, or go to our YouTube channel. Of course, the original, well, not the original, but the one that's most famous is Darrow's Atlantic City. But I would imagine just about every city in the world now has its own Monopoly board. And many of them are in Mike's basement because he has at some points in his life collected or been gifted multiple Monopoly boards. This one is interestingly enough that we're looking at here is a limited edition from 1995. So it's the 60th anniversary edition. Again, Warner Brothers or Hasbro's rather, Waddington's Hasbro's were using the date of 1935 as the invention of Monopoly. Not quite true. What I like about this is it's a limited edition number 11,513. So I don't think there's a great deal of value in this. Nevertheless, it's a very fine set. So that's her 1904. But then, very interestingly, if I find another piece of paper, there's a point at which somebody... So the oldest known version of Darrow's Monopoly, handmade by him in 1933, was a circle. This version of his was painted on a round oilcloth board with paper property cards. Houses and hotels were made from a wood moulding. So again, just to say, it doesn't have to be a square. But I think, Mike, you'd much prefer playing on a square board than a circular board, and why would that be?
I think one of the benefits of a square board is you can move your pieces a lot quicker because if you know there's 10 spaces and you spin a 12, well, you could just skip the first 10 and move on to. I think it'd be a lot harder you'd have to count them individually on that circular board, I think. But it's quicker, basically. The stations are always 5 from the corners, so you just can count very quickly, which is important in a tournament.
Also on a circle, you just feel like you're going round and round and round.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, literally.
What you're doing anyway
exactly.
on a square one, but yes, you're right.
But there is a sense with this one that you complete by going past go. And but Mike and I mean, obviously, when we were growing up, we played a lot of board games. Sunday afternoon board games. After, there'd be Thunderbirds in the morning and maybe the Persuaders or something to watch on TV. But then there was the board games came out and...
Is that how it all started? The kind of Sunday afternoon was the Monopoly
For me,
the one you
started-
always loved the most?
For me, it started in boarding school. So we were on the weekends. The boarders, part of the school, had all the board games there, nothing to do, and of course, half-term holidays we were all left in.
Right.
So
okay.
that's when we all got the board games, and so I would play all weekend, and so that's when it started for me. And then my parents were into board games, so we played a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably is the most popular board game of all time.
It still is one of the top 10 best-selling board games
Yeah.
in the world. It's incredible.
I mean, the other one, which involves a lot more skill, I think you have to be really talented on this other board game, is Cluedo. And I mention that
Cluedo.
because I am the undefeated Southeast Cluedo champion.
It's true.
Who
It's
knew?
true, folks. I was there.
I'm just in the presence of greatness today.
There
This is getting too much.
There was but one Cluedo championship, and I was the winner of the Southeast Cluedo championship. Went on to the British finals, which was held at near Windsor in a house where they used to film Hammer House of Horror.
That's so good.
Where I did not win, and that's another story. It was quite... Anyway, yeah.
I'm actually intrigued by this, though, because you're British champion, and to me, it's how can you become a champion on a game that actually has got
Yes.
quite an element of chance?
Let's talk
It's
about...
also- a very
Because
good
that is
question.
so intriguing
It's a
to
very
me.
good question. So I have reached the British finals, which are held every 3 or 4 years,
Yeah.
or were until recently, every time since 1984.
When was
Yeah.
the most recent one? It's been a while.
So
hasn't it?
2000, well, obviously pre-COVID, so there hasn't been one for about 6 years now.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember. And I'd say that not to be boastful, but to prove it is a very skillful game. I think most people think it's all a bit of luck.
Well, yeah.
But it's a very skillful game. So to get through the heats and, battle 50 people in a particular heat and then get through to the British one, I'm just proving there is a lot of skill for this game. Which
is intriguing because
So-
to every
there's a fair amount of luck.
on the dice throw.
Of course there is.
Yeah.
But you can, hopefully you've got yourself through skill into a position where it doesn't matter too much. You've picked up the best sets. You've got the money to handle any unforeseen circumstances.
Okay, so let's we have a board in front of us.
It's so good.
First of all, so we're going to come on to, I think people are going to want to know some top tips
Oh yeah.
from the best Monopoly player in the United Kingdom, one of the best in the world.
I definitely want some tips.
So, first of all, there are a number of pieces. Now, in this limited edition set, we have an old car, we have a tram, we have a candlestick, I guess that is. We have an iron bath, a boot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a candlestick, so that must be like a chalice, like a drinks thing. So, do we know anything? Were these the original pieces?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I've never seen them before till we opened this box. So it may well be that Waddingtons, who got the rights to Monopoly at some stage after the American version came out, chose those as their initial ones. I'm not sure they're Charles Darrow's original pieces. I think most people at home will be more familiar with the iron and the dog and the cat, and the car and the ship and
the hat.
And the hat.
The hat's my favourite one.
Right.
So,
Have you got a favourite one?
that's the same. So, what piece did
sorry.
you? No, that's the question. What piece
Well,
did you
I
choose?
always like the car. I've always had the car, so I've stuck with it. I like to race around the board, obviously.
Right, okay.
But actually, the best piece I've now worked out was the iron.
Oh.
Because when you're coming up to someone's houses or hotels, it's very small. It's easy to hide on the board. Because what you don't
So
want,
sneaky.
What you don't want them to do is to see you coming around and go, "Oh, I better build some more houses on my properties to catch him."
Right.
So because it's smaller, you can kind of put it, and whereas a car, they can see it.
Because-
so
Yeah.
actually, there is a slight technical advantage.
Because
to
if you don't spot someone's landed on you in that moment,
well, that's also true.
it's too late.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't.
I didn't realise that.
I know,
Yeah,
someone
well,
else-
they got one go to claim the rent, so that's another thing. It is smaller, and if you quickly do it.
If the next dice has been spun,
Yeah.
it's too late to collect the rent for the previous go.
So do you know this now, Alex? Because obviously you've played over the years. So are you okay with an iron, a hat? Then we all want a hat then, which is my favourite piece to
Yeah,
hide.
we used to play. If you don't call it out and say, I want the money for my rent, and the next person goes, you've lost the
you're
chance
done.
to do that. You can't, and 3 goes later go, oh, hold on a minute, you're on my property, I want my money. Go, no, it's too
Right,
late
so I
now.
didn't know that.
He's already stayed there.
Can we also say that one rule which does not exist in Monopoly is putting cash into free parking? That's made up.
So there are lots of made-up rules that people still play today. So one of them is you have to go around the board once before you can buy any property.
Oh, yeah.
And all the fine money goes
False.
onto free parking. They're the two,
False.
which I still, when I play people, they go, well, no, sure. I said, no, these are made-up rules. They ruin the whole flow and the idea of the 30 years of testing and tweaking with the rules. You have to play the proper.
So,
I love it.
how do you decide who goes first? You spin the dice and the highest.
Correct.
So let's assume that Mike's done that. Assume he's won.
Yep.
So, Mike, you spin the dice. Let's see what Mike does. Mike has spun an 11. And I would assume that to begin with, you just buy everything.
So if you're playing 4 or 5 players, you should buy every single thing you land on. These properties are invaluable for trading, doing deals. Without them, you haven't got a chance. So with 4 or 5 players, you buy every single thing you land on.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Tip number 1.
so let's just have a look before we talk about the deals, which is a key part which not everyone necessarily understands. What I think is so fantastic about this board, and we've talked about this so often in talking about paintings, is the use of colour. It's really, really attractive. And actually, if you go back to looking at some of these early boards, straight away they're using blues and greens and reds, and they're making it very attractive. This box from 1933, He's already doing the light blues. Actually, I'm looking at it now. Darker blues. Actually, it's not as attractive as it is now.
No, this is
Browns. So the use of colour is really important. Browns, or not so, browns kind of suit the kind of cheapest properties, don't they?
I love the Old Kent Road.
Yeah, well,
Me and my husband had our first date on that Old Kent Road.
oh, there you go.
So I'm going to buy that.
So you
every
always
time.
get that every time. But the blues, I don't know I'm not even sure what colour you'd call that, kind of pinky,
Mauve is pink
pinky
on
purple.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm on pink on that. But
Oranges, which we're going to come on to, are the best set.
that
Reds,
was one of my questions.
yellows, greens, and then obviously the very fancy purples for Mayfair and Park Lane. So it's a very attractive. I mean, the colours make it really attractive. So whether you're young or old, I think that's part of the appeal of this board. I love the design of it. I love the little. I mean, this one has British Railways, which kind of dates it. But I mean, it's got old style steam train, all the little icons, the community chest, the ring. What else have we got? The question mark. I think that's it. But they're all great icons. I mean, it's just beautifully designed. The fonts change from set to set. This is kind of slightly italicized. Right. So one of the things Mike said there, of course, is you have to have... you buy up basically everything until you've got no money because you want to be able to trade. Now, there's a very good example of this trading. I was making a film about Monopoly. We're going back about 40 years, 35 years, actually making it for Welsh television, S4C. And they said, look, we can't influence this, but it was one of the regional heats. The winner went through to the British finals. There were like 5, 6, 7 heats across the country. This was the last regional heat. It was in Cardiff. And we got a commission to make a film about Monopoly based around the filming of that heat. And the commissioning editor said, look, we're a Welsh-speaking channel. It'd be great if there was a Welsh speaker who did well. There were 50 competitors. Only 2 spoke Welsh. As it happens, 2 or 3 didn't turn up. My brother was down as a photographer. He's a good photographer, came down to photograph this for me. And he said, as it happens, I haven't yet qualified for the British finals, so I'd be quite keen to take part. You've got a space, do you mind? And they said, no, go ahead, you're making up the numbers. Jump forwards to the final, and there are, 5 people in the final?
There were
6?
5 people.
5 people in the final, and this is, for us, of course, the narrative conclusion of the film. One of them is my brother, very much an English speaker. One of those 2 Welsh speakers had remarkably, with no influence from us, got through, and she had basically never played the game before.
Well, that is good.
She was an example
Yeah.
of somebody who got through purely on luck. And I'm thinking, who do I want to win this? Because for the film, for the Welsh-speaking channel, it'd be great for a Welsh speaker to win. But my brother's in it too. Anyway, I just thought, I'm not even going to debate it. What will be, will be. But then it became a rather interesting game. Mike, over to you.
So after about half an hour, I guess, the player on my right had picked up the cheap Old Kent and Whitechapel Road set. The other 4 of us, all the cards had been sold. We had all the other sets between us, but there was no simple deal, no 2-player or 3-player deal. The cards were so split up that we just... So I stopped the game at this point, and to Phil's dismay, I stopped it for about 20 minutes. And I explained to everybody, I said, look, this guy with the set will win because he'll just keep draining our money. We need to do a deal. Now, between the 4 of us, we have 3 sets. So what I suggest is we put all the cards in the middle, we spin the dice. The highest dice chooses the set they want with just those 3 cards. The next guy chooses the next set, the next guy. The person who is last gets all the spare cards to make up for the fact that they haven't got a set.
Just cards, no cash involved in any of this.
No cash at all. And this took a bit of convincing because no one had ever even heard of such a crazy deal. But I realised we had no alternative. We just couldn't sit there and lose. So it took me 15, 20 minutes to convince them, and in the end they all went, okay.
Terrible television.
Yeah, for Phil, obviously not so great. So we all spin the dice, and I get the lowest. So I'm thinking I've just spent 20 minutes trying to talk them where I would have at least a chance of a set. I get the lowest. However, whilst they had a set each, all they had were those 3 cards each. I now had a huge amount of cards, so I then turned around to the guy on my right and I said, look, matey, you have now got no chance because you've got the cheapest set. They've got a set each. So your only chance of winning now is to do a deal with me because you've got cards that match. And he hummed and hawed and for a few rounds didn't do it. But eventually he cracked and he did a deal with me. And of course I've got lots of property that I can mortgage, raise money, put houses, and the rest is history because I ruined Phil's film.
No, it became... but Mike went on to win, which was great.
Yes.
A cult classic.
And became the Welsh champion. And had to say Ymlaen I Mayfair, which means advance to Mayfair in Welsh. But it led to one of the funniest moments in my childhood, or no, not early adulthood. One day I'm sitting with Mike and we're watching TV. I must have been around Mike's house. We're watching TV and there's it's so funny. There was terrible flooding in Wales. And Mike stood up and said, I must go to my people. He got his sash.
I had my Welsh champion sash that I wore that I wore actually in the British Championships in the Park Lane Hotel, which I won. So I then went on to for the World Championship. So that was quite.
So when you get to there's people who'll be interested in this. When you get to the British final at Park Lane Hotel, how does that work? How do you compete in a final? Because one of the things is the games are time limited, aren't they?
So depends how many people have qualified. Let's say there's 25. So there's 5 tables of 5 people. They set a time limit of 1.5 hours. So in that 1.5 hours, you've got to either try and bankrupt your whole table, or at least try and get as much assets as possible. Because at the end of that hour and a half, whistle goes, and they will count out your assets. That's the money, the value of your houses and your properties. And you need to build up a big total. Because at the end of those first 3 games of 1.5 hours each, the top 5 asset holders go on to a single final game. So it's important you play quickly, you get the money from passing go coming into the game, so everybody needs to move and do deals, and that's what happens.
Oh, this is so... I love
so
this
you
so
won.
much.
You won Park Lane.
It's so good.
I won the British. In fact, no, sorry, forget where the British was, but the World that year was at the Park Lane Hotel.
Oh, in the UK.
Oh,
In the UK, the first time.
Oh, sorry, I do remember that. Yes.
Yeah.
How many times have you been in the world?
3. There's
Okay.
only 2 players in the planet that's been to manage to qualify 3 times for the. So the first was the Park Lane Hotel. The second time, lovely time in Monte Carlo, and the third in Toronto.
And when you're playing the World Finals, is it only the final? I guess it's just the final of the very last game of those finals. You're playing for cash.
Correct. So same format. You have maybe 32 normally, I think it is, 35 entrants from around the world. Obviously, they've got interpreters, so that makes the game a bit more interesting as you're trying to do a deal with someone who's Russian or Greek or whatever. So you're playing, again, 3 games, 1.5 hours. Top 5 go through.
Over 2 days.
Over a weekend, correct. Top 5 go through to a final where you play with the real money. So the fake money that you're all used to in the Monopoly board is replaced with real money. This makes handing over the...
$15,500?
About $15,500, yeah. This makes handing over those little rents that you don't normally care about. It's actually money. And paying £500 to someone is 10 £50 notes, or $100 notes, whatever.
Do you get to keep whatever
Yes,
you have?
do. The winner keeps all the money.
But the other ones, if you end up with £1,000,
No.
in second
The winner gets to keep all the money.
15,000.
You play him basically
okay.
till you've bankrupted everybody.
so there's no time limit on that
No
one?
time limit on the fund.
So what's the longest one that's ever gone on then for the World
They don't
Champions?
tend to go on.
No.
People have this impression of Monopoly going on for days. It doesn't. If if you're trading and doing deals, and you're building houses, they don't last long. I bankrupted a table. My record was 45 minutes.
Wow.
Of 5 people. So they don't.
Fun times.
Sometimes not so fun at Christmas.
I can't imagine Christmas.
Most of those are my family.
I tell you where it gets.
Poor Alex.
Where it gets a bit tetchy is when people won't do deals, and Michael has been known to bully people. If you don't do that deal, I can't believe how stupid you are if you don't do that.
This has happened. In Monte Carlo, the French guy refused to deal with me because I had such a high asset total from previous rounds. He tried to turn everybody against me, and I said to him, "So you have no chance of winning unless you do a deal with me because we've got the cards that match." He went, "No, I'm not dealing with you," and so I still qualified for the final 5. He didn't. So
yeah, but that is. I mean, sometimes people know. That guy Grabsky. He's always doing these deals. I don't. Whatever deal you're offering me, it's to your benefit, and they'll just won't deal with it.
It is actually now like a sport, then, isn't it? Because you could walk in, Mike, and I'm really not competitive. So even the thought of actually playing you, I know I'm going to lose. Because for a start, I'd be too nervous. Because I know I'd be doing a little counting up, and I know that would wind you up. I love the idea of all the money in the middle. That's what we played as a child. So I'm like, I've already lost all the money in the middle. So, but as a competitive person, I have to know this. Can you ever just sit down and if someone said, "Oh, can we put the money in the middle, Mike? Can we do this once around the board? Is that going to be okay?" Can you cope with that?
No.
There you go. And I would be like, "Oh,
it's
let's just
sacrilegious.
Yeah.
30 years.
It's so good.
Playing this game, tweaking the rules and the money and the rents and the cards. And everything's just perfect to give you just enough but not too much. To ruin it all by putting hundreds, if not thousands, in this, some lucky player lands on free parking.
Yeah.
It's just completely spoils
But
the
in a
whole
way that
flow.
would give somebody...
It would.
Say they
Which is
bring
why I
the
don't want to do it.
90-year-old neighbour from down the road
No.
and they're like, "Oh, come on, Mike, this is the one." Just
They might beat me. By suddenly ended up with 2,000. No.
But there are some top tips. Do you want to give people some top tips? I could give people some top tips.
yes,
I'm sure you know. You've heard them from me.
Well, I read it about the orange, and you mentioned the orange.
Okay,
So what is it about the orange?
So here's 3 top tips. Number 1, if you've got properties, if you do get a set, then you want to get property on there as quickly as possible. If you have other properties, mortgage them, and then you get half the value back, because that cash you can then use to buy houses. There's no point having just like one house on each of your, if you get a set, having one house on each, and having like 6 other properties unmortgaged. You mortgage it, get the cash, buy houses. If you're buying houses, the rental value between 2 and 3 houses is enormous. If you can get to 3 houses, get there as quickly as possible.
And that's what I've got written down. Right. So you don't rush around for a hotel then? You really drive...
Never buy a hotel.
Never
buy a
hotel?
Never buy a hotel. So here's very
this is a hot
interesting.
tip.
This is the top. This is the top tip.
This is...
I'm going to take another bite of... I have to say, Laura very kindly made mince pies.
I know, this
They're
is
absolutely
this is
delicious.
so fun. I'm having so much fun.
So one of the reasons they believe the game is called Monopoly is because you can monopolise the houses. There are only 32 houses and 12 hotels in the box.
Right.
Once those houses have gone, you cannot buy a hotel, because to buy a hotel you first must have 4 houses. If there are no houses in the box, a player just cannot say, "I want to buy a hotel." So if you monopolise those, one game the guy managed to get the whole row, the bottom row, that's the light blues so he bought 4 houses and 20 houses gone. That only left 12 houses for the other players. So you can monopolise the houses. So if you buy a hotel, then all those houses go back in the box. So you want to try and restrict the number. If you can only leave a few houses in the box for the other players, then that's why you don't want to buy them.
So when you're playing, you keep a really close eye of how many houses are left, because there comes a point when you are into a housing shortage.
I had no idea.
Now, if there's only say 9 houses left, can I just buy them all, or what?
Well, you can. Okay, this is how it works. So at any one stage, Phil he might say, "I want to buy." Let's say there's 5 left. He said, "I want to buy those 5 houses." Any other player at that stage can say, whoa, I also would like some of those houses. This is now a housing shortage situation. And if you read the rules, it's all in there. It goes to an auction.
Yeah.
So every single house is put on the 5, one at a time, and they go, you bid, £1, £2, 5, 10. And so they all get auctioned off. Now, of course, this
I'll
is
just
a
say-
big advantage to the guy who's got
But is it all the houses come out?
all that's left.
And
yeah.
they all have to be auctioned?
All. Once you start an auction, they all have.
right.
Now, I've been involved in a game where we all did a deal, so all 5 of us suddenly had a set.
Mm-hmm.
We all wanted 8 or 9 houses. There's only 32 in the box. It wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So we had to auction off one at a time.
Yeah.
All 32.
Really?
Now, the value of those houses start
Yeah.
off low, goes high, and people start running out of money.
Yeah.
And the guy at the end, now, of course, the guy with the Mayfair set, he's loving this because instead of paying 200 a house,
Yeah.
he's picking them up for 70, 80 as people run out of money.
I didn't know this was even a thing.
So, you know, you could
This
say,
is so good.
So someone like Mike would be thinking, all right, these 5 sets are being negotiated. We're going to sort it out. There's all those houses in the box. I'll accept the set that nobody else wants, i.e. Mayfair and Park Lane, because they all think it's too expensive. But he knows it's going to go to auction, and initially he'll be able to get houses. I mean, no one else is thinking that. Mike's thinking that.
I've learnt so much today
there's a lot,
already.
There's a lot to this.
I
game,
did not
I'll tell
know.
you.
But then the third tip is, what is the best set to have?
Yeah.
People might know this. It's, I mean, I was talking to Alex earlier. We went on a run. We were talking about. We were talking about the colour orange. We love the colour orange. It's the orange set. Why? Well, one of the key reasons is that there are a number of reasons why you might go to jail. You spin 3 doubles in a row, pretty unusual, but it happens. Or you just pick up one of the cards that says go to jail.
Jail cards. Okay.
Or you land on the go to jail.
And you land on the
Square,
go
of
to
course.
jail square, of course.
Okay. Right.
And then what is the most common number that you're going to
So
spin?
7s are the most common, but the 8s and the 9s and the 6s are there, up there as the most common. So it's a perfect landing zone for someone who's just got himself free, he's just released himself, he's paid his 50 to get out of jail.
Bang.
He smells the fresh air, bosh onto your houses.
God.
On the-
Plus, they're only £100 a time to buy a house,
Right.
but the rents beyond 3 houses, and particularly if you get to a hotel, are pretty decent. I mean, they could knock a hole in your pocket. So I would say, not exclusively, but I mean, for example, in my much more limited experience playing Monopoly, I don't think I've ever won with the green set, probably not with the yellow set, but either, as Mike says, getting one of the first 2 sets, particularly the blues, but definitely the oranges, purples sometimes.
It's like changed my life. This.
But let's
I had no idea.
But let's go back. Let's go back to the original designer, the person who came up with the idea, because she was the creator of this artwork. I think it is an artwork. Lizzie McGee. And as we mentioned, she was an anti-monopolist.
Yeah.
So the idea of monopoly, and of course, you know, this we don't even think about it, but actually what they're trying to do is monopolize, you know, own all the assets so they can charge what they like. You turn up and the cost of the hotel is too high and the rental's too high. This is landlords. It's a terribly exploitive capitalist game, and we should... So she perceives this right from the start. She's an anti-monopolist, so her background is very interesting. She's born in rural Illinois in 1866. Her father, James McGee, had travelled with Abraham Lincoln. He was an influential newspaper editor, political advocate, and he had infused these values in his daughter. There's a book in 1879, Henry George's Progress and Poverty, which depicts how individuals should own 100% of what they made or created, but everything else found in nature, particularly land, should belong to everyone. This inspires her game. Now, of course, by the time we get to 1933 and Charles Darrow, and it's all changed, it's gone completely the other way.
Yeah.
But in the 70s, I think it must have been, Mike noticed, and we as a family bought a copy of a game called Anti-Monopoly.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it was basically based on Monopoly. It looked very similar to Monopoly, but the idea was you bust the trusts. So you were trying to destroy monopolies.
Right, okay.
And Waddington's, it wasn't Hasbro's at that point, it was still Waddington's, was so upset that they actually went after the...
I think it was probably Parker Brothers who
Parker
owned
Brothers.
the worldwide rights.
Parker Brothers. Because it was 1973, there was an economics professor, his name was Ralph Anspach, and he had created Anti-Monopoly, And Parker Brothers battled him and said, it's an infringement of copyright. And it was him that did all the research and found out that there were these previous incarnations of Monopoly. And in fact, it wasn't developed by Charles Darrow, which was the kind of creation myth, but actually it was McGee. And he talked about the Monopoly lie and so forth. Parker Brothers actually won that case. All anti-monopoly boards were withdrawn from sale and destroyed, and it never returned. We have, I don't know how many copies there will be in existence, we have a copy of this game.
Oh.
It has some value, I suppose, because we saw it very early, got a copy very early, because at that time we were, anything unusual to do with Monopoly Mike was buying or getting hold of.
Yeah, or get given as a present.
But again, you don't think about it, but like any artwork, these things need a closer look. We don't think about the fact it's Monopoly, but actually it does exhibit some of the worst traits in the sense that what you're trying to do is bankrupt people. When we play this game, we're trying to trying to take away all your money, so you have no house, no property, nothing. This is supposed to be Christmas, a time of giving.
Well, this is it.
It's almost like the most anti-Christmas game you can possibly imagine. And of course, sometimes I'm sure many families have experienced this where it does get a bit tetchy.
Oh, I think it's been the cause of many an argument. Boards have gone flying, but that's where it's the performance piece. It's almost like, Mike, you are your own performance piece. You're your own piece of art.
Well, it is. The communication is always what it's about. When you're trying to trade with people who you're trying to bankrupt, you're looking them in the face and you're trying to do a trade that you know is detrimental to them and good for you, but you've got to smile and this is good, And I may want a card from you that I want to swap with the other player, actually, so you don't even notice what I'm doing. Okay, you give it to me, then I know I can do a deal with player X, whatever. So it's a lot of... But yes, so if a player doesn't want to trade with you and you think that's unreasonable, because actually it is good for both of you, it does get a bit frustrating.
So Alex, you're 20. So when I look back to my childhood, it is a childhood where there's a lot of board games being played. Risk, Cluedo, Exploration, Campaign, obviously Monopoly, and others. And at Christmas, I was, getting a board game. I remember getting the Mousetrap one year. I was so excited. Is that part of your child? Or is your childhood now, as we're 2024, so from 2004, 2024, is your childhood one of the mobile phone?
No, I think we grew up, we played lots of board games. We would play Risk, we would play Clue, we would play lots of games. The last days of some of these games, we would have it on the kitchen table, on the dining table, sitting there. We'd play every now and again, a couple rolls of the dice, come back another day, put a couple more rolls. And I remember one of my favourite memories about Monopoly was we went to the 2010 Monopoly Olympiad Championships. And I was only...
I don't remember that.
Maybe 8 at the time. And I remember watching my dad up at the table playing these games, and we made it to the final.
Oh, well, the children's competition as well?
It wasn't a children's competition. I was just there to watch. Okay. And I said, can I roll the dice for you, for my dad? And so we asked the other people at the table. He said, can my son just roll the dice because he wants to be a part of the game? And every time I said, Dad, what do we need to win?
No.
And he would say, we need a 10 so we can land on this property. I said, okay, roll the dice. It was a 10. And somehow, every single roll of my dice was always the best possible roll, double sixes and getting all these good rolls. It was probably one of the persons said at the table, I'll give you $1,000 for the kid. I said, I want him to roll the dice.
It is true. I won that,
and we won, and I still have the trophy in my cabinet today from this Olympiad tournament because I managed to roll the dice and get us the victory. And I remember one line that he would say quite a lot was, "If you don't make this deal, you will lose." I used to say that all the time. You will lose.
Yeah.
And the people go, okay, yeah, I'll have to do it. And he's saying, the guy's like, no, I did this. He goes, no, you have to do this deal or you will lose. And I managed to roll the dice and we won the championships and we got the trophy.
Oh, this is so good.
We're going to Las Vegas tomorrow, Alex. Just I don't know how to play craps, but I'm going to learn very fast because you're that good with dice.
It's a great game, Chris.
It was a great, yeah.
Mike could have sold him as well for 1,000. I mean, that would have been up anyway.
I'm kind of surprised.
You're still here.
Mike didn't say $1,000.
Real money, deal would have been done.
So I'm going to conclude by saying, like a great artwork where there's nothing better in a sense than having one. Like when I go to a gallery with Laura and we both stand in front of a painting and we talk about it, that's part of the intention of an artist, that when they're creating their artwork, they have an audience in mind and they want someone to look at their artwork and discuss it and be emotionally affected by it, intellectually affected by it. Even though you can make an argument that there are some nasty traits in Monopoly with bankruptcies and all the rest of it. But actually, it's a fantastic game. The whole family are sitting around a table together. They're communicating together. We're not all sitting on our sofas looking at our phones, not even talking. I love a board game. As they say. I can't. In fact, the first time I met my wife was she had just beaten Mike at Monopoly, and I thought that's interesting. So there's even Monopoly in my own history. But this has absolutely reminded me that this Christmas I'm getting the board games out. I won't bother with Cluedo because everyone's so disappointed when I win. But I mean, as a kid, I used to do all-nighters playing Risk, and that can get very tense because you've been playing for 10 hours and you're about to knock somebody out and they can be very unhappy. But these are brilliant games, and I'm sure there are brilliant games being invented all the time, but these are classics. I love a game of Monopoly. It's a beautiful board. I just love getting it out of the box and the colours and the pieces and all of it is great. So I can't wait. I hope you guys listening are playing it over Christmas. You've got some tips now. You don't need to go once around the border before you buy property. You don't put cash in free parking. Do get 3 houses on your property as soon as possible. If you get to housing shortages and you can't remember what Mike said, look it up in the rules. It is kind of important. And let's hope that, who are they now? Hasbro's?
Hasbro's now have the worldwide. They've bought up everybody, Waddingtons and Parker Brothers.
So let's hope that they get some international competitions going back.
And if you ever get stuck, you just got to remember, you got to think, what would Mike Grabsky do?
Yeah.
You're the story.
And he's on YouTube.
Oh, I haven't got here.
Come on. You need
the Lucky Underpants.
Oh, come on.
All right, let's finish with the Lucky... It's Christmas.
It's Christmas.
Let's finish with the Lucky Underpants.
This is particularly embarrassing, but I will relate the story. So in the Toronto World Championships, the PR company for Waddingtons, the English PR company, rang me one morning and said, look, we've come up with this story that you like to feng shui your bedroom. And there's a TV crew down here from CNBC or somewhere. And I said, do me a favor, I do not know how to do that. She said, well, you think of something. And so we came up with, I have these Lucky Underpants. I said, okay, we'll go with. So it's 7:30 in the morning. I've got these 4 people coming up with microphones and cameras and all sorts of gear to film me putting on my Lucky, which I don't have. We just made this up because that's what the PR company likes to do. So I've got to put these...
How are they going to film you putting your boxes on?
Well, I've got a dressing gown on. I've got my...
Discreetly.
I've got my older underpants on a chair somewhere. And they roll the cameras and I have to lovingly pick up these old underpants and subtly put them on.
I feel great now.
And then they go, cut, that was great, but can we do it from a different angle? Oh, for God's sake. So I'm going to take these underpants, I'll put them back on this chair, 4 times. I've got to put on these so-called Lucky Underpants for this CEO, which was then broadcast, I believe, to 4 million people that morning on their morning news. A picture of me, a UK
guy
contestant.
can barely touch his toes.
Yeah.
He's got to put his underpants on.
The UK contestant for the World Monopoly Championships putting on Lucky Underpants. What an idiot I must have looked like.
Oh, and that is a YouTube classic. Ladies and gentlemen, we wish you a very happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you for listening to the Painting of the Week podcast. For more information, please visit our website, at seventh-art.com or contact us by emailing info@seventh-art.com. See you next time.